G'day legends! In this video, we're going to be talking about the fighter of the decade. Now that we're in 2025, we're getting close to the halfway mark of the decade. Somebody asked me this in the live stream last night, and I thought it was a brilliant question. I can't remember who it was, so if you're watching this video and you were in last night's live stream, put your name down there in the comments. I want to give you the shout out that you deserve. And it got my mind ticking all night. So we're going to have a little bit of a horse race today. It's going to be great. And we're going to be looking at how have the fighters gone since 2020? How is their career trajectory looking for the rest of the year? Who could we start to consider as the fighter of the decade? I'm going to try and kick this list off today, and then we might bring it up again on tonight's live stream and see if we can lock it down a little bit more. It's such a weird question, isn't it? Like, who is going to be the fighter of the decade? Like, I instantly started just looking at the champions and pulling apart where they're at. Straight away, let's kick off the horse race with Israel Adesanya. Right now, he kicked off 2020. These photos are so good. Israel Adesanya, he kicked off 2020 defending against Yoel Romero in just a horrible performance. It was a sleeper fight. Let's not pretend it wasn't a sleeper fight. You know, it was horrible. The thing with Izzy in 2020 is he was good when he was good, but when you start to look at his record, he has been a little bit overglazed. You know what I mean? He is starting to go on an almost Anderson Silva-esque trajectory. Since the year 2020, he is 6-5 in the UFC. You can't be putting someone who is 6-5 as the fighter of the decade, can you? You can't do it. Like Izzy, when you start to look at the record as a cutoff mark with a certain date on it, you do start to wonder, dude, when are we going to be hanging up the gloves here? If you bring up a conversation about Israel Adesanya, you immediately think of the Three Kings, and then you go, well, what about Kamaru Usman? Kamaru Usman, he started off the decade great. He's got a few title defenses until he got his head kicked off, But the title defenses from the year 2020 onwards, two of them were against Masvidal. He was only there because of the hype and the timing of the situation. He's also 4-3 in the 20s. But I do highly rate those 3 losses. I think those 3 losses almost get too much weight put on them. You know what I mean? Like the first loss against Leon Edwards, he was winning the majority of that fight. People act like, oh, he won 24 minutes of a 25-minute fight. That's too much. He did lose the first round to Leon, but he was winning the majority of that fight until he got his head kicked off. The third fight with Leon Edwards, or the second fight with Leon Edwards of the decade, he was winning, I don't know if he was winning. It was a close fight, and Leon Edwards had to cheat 1,000 times to even make that fight competitive. So it was a close competitive fight. And then his third loss of the decade is against Khamzat Chimaev, who we are now absolutely assured is a dominant force. And to take Khamzat Chimaev to what was essentially a draw on 11 days notice, to me, will never get given enough credit. So the 3 losses that Usman has, I don't know if I hold them that high against him, but when we do start to look at the horse race here, when we do start to look at the race here, you do have to sort of put Kamaru Usman towards the back of the line. Modern champions, right? You got Ilia Topuria. Too soon to tell. I do think it's too soon to tell in a fighter of the decade conversation. DDP, again, too soon to tell in a fighter of the decade conversation. Bilal Muhammad, don't care, not going to have a conversation about Bilal Muhammad in the fighter of the decade unless he goes on to win 3 championships. Alhamdulillah, please don't let Bilal Muhammad win 3 championships. Let's move on. Anyway, Volkanovski, right? Volkanovski has got to be in the conversation. He has to be fighter of the decade. In this decade, in the 20s, he would have beaten Max Holloway twice, destroyed Ortega, just destroyed him. Yair Rodriguez, destroyed him. The Zombie, destroyed him. Since this era, in the 20s, he has been in nothing but title fights. Nothing but title fights. Unlike Usman and Israel Adesanya, who have dropped back down to fight for the contenders, then you start looking at the modern champions like Merab and all that. They have been in contender fights. They have been fighting through the rankings. But when you look at Volk in the 20s, so far he has been in nothing but title fights. Unfortunately, he has had a couple of losses on the record. 5-3 this decade doesn't look as good on paper as it feels. As good as Volk has felt this decade, just seeing 5-3 alone there on paper does sort of hurt it a little bit, I will admit that. Someone who's constantly overlooking the photo Someone who is constantly overlooked whenever us creators do tier lists or things like this. Alexandre Pantoja, man. He's always overlooked. And he started off the 20s. He started off 2020 with a loss. But since then, he has racked up 7 wins in a row. 4 of them being title defenses. It's kind of insane. He needs to get more credit than he gets. Maybe it's just because of the division that he is in. But when you look at the run that he is on and how much he has got that division on lockdown, we are scrambling to find something for him to do. We are getting to the point where us, the MMA community, are like, Dana, just move him up. He clocked flyweight. Just move him up. Let him go, mate. Set him free from flyweight. He definitely deserves to be high up in the conversation. Now we're getting towards the finish line end of who's winning the race, right? If we were to call the race at the halfway mark of the decade, who's winning the race so far? Now we're starting to get towards the finish line when we're talking about Alexandre Pantoja, yeah? We could talk about Jose Aldo, just because of the longevity of his career, but when you look at just the decade isolated, I don't know if Jose Aldo works, yeah? What about Marambles? What about Marambles? Jeez, he's fought 10 times in the 20s. 10 times. He's undefeated. He's the names on his resume in the 20s, yeah? Petr Yan, Jose Aldo, Henry Cejudo, O'Malley. He's got a Magomedov on his resume too now. If you don't put Marambles on there, I'm happy to not put Bilal on the list. Because fuck him. I'm happy to not put Bilal on the list, but Marambles you do have to sort of put on the list. And not only that, he's starting to win the fans over as well. People are actually starting to enjoy Marambles, I don't know how this is happening. I guess it just goes to prove in the UFC, as long as you're a champion and you're winning, you will find yourself a fan base. The lesson in life is to just keep cracking on and having a go. There is an audience for you no matter what. If Marambles can find an audience, anyone can, mate. I know people are going to absolutely come for me if I don't put this name on the list. Alex Pereira wins over Israel Adesanya, right? He's a fight away from light heavyweight domination. He has essentially sped run the UFC. And I'm not saying because he's a bit there. He doesn't know when to smile at a party. I mean, he is speed running the UFC. He has got Ronda Rousey records. What he is attempting to do against Magomed Ankalaev, I still don't think is also getting enough credit. I tried to big him up yesterday, but if he beats Magomed Ankalaev, he will have broken Ronda Rousey's record last year and then still defended the belt in the first quarter against what might be the hardest number 1 contender he's ever fought at light heavyweight. Again, in the first quarter, people like Bilal are still yet to get back in the cage. You know what I'm saying? This champion, the Weili took off an entire year last year. She fought once over an entire 12-month period. Do you get what I'm saying here? What he's doing is insane. It is insane. If he gets through Magomed Ankalaev, we need to have a serious conversation about where Alex Pereira goes in the GOAT conversation. Let me move on, all right? Let me move on. Alex Pereira is definitely high up towards the finish line of the race that we're having here. Islam Makhachev. Since 2020 has kicked off with Islam Makhachev, he's beaten Drew Dober. No, still good. I mean, Dober's all right. Dober's good. He's beaten Bobby Green. Good. Hooker. Good. But Hooker's good, man. Hooker's good, all right? He had a little slump, but he bounced back. He covered his body in tattoos, found his hardcore zen, and he's back. Okay, so Hooker's good, all right? Yeah, Dober, Green. These aren't exactly Petr Yan, Jose Aldo names, are they? Volk twice. Insane. One of them is a bit. This is the problem with Islam Makhachev's career. I believe that Islam Makhachev is the most dominant lightweight and is the pound for pound fighter in the world right now. But he is fighting in a time where lightweight is very undercooked right now, and his wins aren't looking as good on the second Volk win isn't really worth anything, but he's got Volk twice. Now, Charles Oliveira, that is his crowning achievement, I do believe. Charles Oliveira is a proper number 1 contender. 4th best lightweight of all time, 3rd best lightweight of all time. Charles Oliveira, that is his crowning achievement. And to get a submission on Charles Oliveira, beautiful. Moicano, okay. Moicano's 36 with no collarbone. It is what it is. He's fun. We love him. But it is what it is. He's undefeated, which is amazing. Amazing. Yes, he is winning so far, but he's got Poirier as well. But all these, why are you taking Poirier to 2-2 going into the 5th on one judge's scorecard? It hurts. It hurts. It hurts you, Islam. It does hurt you. And he's towards the finish line end of the race. He's high up there. He's high up there. Next one up, someone who deserves a mention, and we don't often do this on this channel, but they deserve a mention. You know, they came into the decade in the 2020s with a belt already wrapped around their waist. They've defended 5 times. They've lost it and won it back, which is insanely hard to do. It really is insanely hard to do. And they have broken the wall of 36 years old to win back that belt dominantly, which is something that you just, quite frankly, in any sporting competition, you just don't do that. You do not lose and then come back at 36 years old and win dominantly. It's really, really incredible. Valentina Shevchenko seriously deserves a shout out on this list. What she has done is insane, and it doesn't get enough credit because, like flyweight, it's WMMA, and WMMA is shit right now. It is. Fair enough. The pool that she's swimming in is full of shit. However, you have got to judge an athlete by the division, the sport that they're in. You know, if we're going to talk about the best hockey player, you got to talk, hockey's boring, but you got to talk about them compared to everyone else on the field. You know, you're going to talk about the best cricketer, great, you play 5 days, you get a draw, but you got to talk about, the competition that they're in. You know what I mean? Heavyweight, right? If you're going to talk about Aspinall and how great he is, it's compared to the other heavyweights. It is what it is. Valentina Shevchenko, she's an MMA fighter. She's swimming in the pool that she is in, and she's fucking dominating that pool that she is in, quite frankly. Like, to do everything that she has done is insane, and to not put her on a list like this when we're talking about the fighter of the decade, Valentina Shevchenko might be the fighter of the decade. Seriously, when it's her compared to her peers, she is so far ahead. She's not Islam Makhachev going life and death with the 5th ranked Dustin Poirier. You know what I'm saying? She is dominant, losing, coming back, winning again dominantly. Kind of really good. Kind of really, really good. Valentina is insane. But there we go. That is the race as I see it thus far for who is going to be the fighter of the decade by the time we get to the end of the year. If you were going to call it now, that is where I would be looking at the race so far. Who knows how this list is going to turn out over the next 5 years? Look at the fall off that the Kamaru Usmans and the Israel Adesanyas and the Volkanovskis have had. By the time we take 2020 and cornerstone it on each end, who knows? Ilia Topuria, maybe Bilal Muhammad could be the fighter of the decade. Who knows? But this is how I see the race playing out so far. We will, of course, argue about it later on the live streams. If this is your first time here, g'day, my name is Dougie. I try and make an MMA video every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And I try and go live about 3 times a week. So if you want to know when all of that happens, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell. The notification bell is meant to tell you when I go live. YouTube. And also give this video a like to help the channel grow. That'd be bloody great. And if you're one of the paying members of the channel, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Your names are up on the next slide. And until then, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.